Kill it.
Just roll with it.
Just kill it.
All right, here we go, girls. All right, children. Anybody have to go pee or anything before we go?
No.
You sure? Patty?
I'm 14 years old. You don't
I'm good, thank you.
like I'm a child.
Well, then stop acting
are a
like a
child.
child.
Dude, I go
Okay.
pee-pee in the potty.
You know, really, because if you have to go, we have to give you a key to go to the bathroom.
I already
so
showed it to him.
stand up, shake around, see if you feel like that lets anything loose.
I mean, but leave it
You've been
inside.
holding it for hours?
She can
She
hold
can
it.
hold it.
Oh, okay.
See,
Good.
here's the thing: is they haven't broke 30 yet, so they don't have to pee like
Constantly.
every 5
as
seconds.
soon as they have to pee.
Yeah.
Oh, look, I looked at water. I got to pee. Yeah. All right, kids, you're lucky. God love you. God
All right,
love you. All
be
right, here we
quiet.
go. Quiet now.
You're listening to Addressing Gettysburg. Cool. Cool.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this special holiday episode of Addressing Gettysburg. Today, the holiday is St. Patrick's Day, the day when everybody culturally appropriates the culture of the Irish, which is, of course, drinking, dressing in gaudy colors and sweaters and goofy hats and vomiting in the streets. No, that's not true.
the
That's
day
not
after.
entirely
That's
true.
March 18th. The vomiting occurs.
Yes. No, the vomiting occurs on the 17th as well.
Well, yeah, if you go too hard.
At least in my day it did. But anyway, we're here to talk to you about St. Patrick's Day and the Civil War. Once again, with us is our Civil War holiday expert, Matt Borders. Hello, Matt.
Hey, Matt.
And joining us today with Matt is his co-host on the History Things podcast, a fella who named Pat McGuire. A name like that, Patty, Polish?
Yes, very Polish.
Very Polish, okay.
Yes.
It's the only Polish leprechaun I know.
We are here
So,
to talk about the
cool.
Civil War parts of my second birthday. 'Cause
Pardon?
I'm blessed to have 2 birthdays. Being an August baby, but also being named Patrick, I get to celebrate this day as if it's a second birthday.
And now,
Let's go.
But is it a birthday observance?
Yeah, no. But I get
No,
to
it's
just party
not.
my ass off. And
yes.
people are like, oh, your name's Patrick. You want a drink?
Oh,
Yeah.
I see. Is that
Yeah.
true? Is that how
Yeah,
that works?
It's pretty common.
Oh, see, I was so close, Matt, but never Pat.
Right.
And I guess I didn't. I guess the Pats are the blondes of male names, right?
I don't know. It's something.
They always have fun, or whatever that is.
That's been my experience.
Yeah.
What?
What's that expression? Blondes have the most fun, or something like that?
I don't know.
Something around.
Well, yeah, something like that. I wouldn't know. I have no hair.
Yeah.
So, Matt Borders, let us get into this already. Okay, St. Patrick's Day, March 17th is the day we observe it. But what is it? Where does it come from? Did they have it in the Civil War?
They did have it in the Civil War, Matt, interestingly enough, but it's less of the everybody's Irish today that we have in modern times and much more of a cultural holiday for those who are Irish, or I should say were Irish or of Irish descent. We are going to see a little bit in some of the discussion I have for you today about inviting other folks into the celebration, but it's definitely not the, hey, everybody's Irish, we're all wearing green, let's all get a drink together sort
Because
of thing.
back in those days, everyone didn't want to be Irish.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
They didn't really accept the Irish.
No Irish need apply.
Right.
And we're going to talk about that a little bit. That's exactly
Okay.
right.
So it's mainly an Irish holiday.
Mainly an Irish holiday, yeah.
When was it brought over to this land?
Well, it's going to start coming over here pretty much when the Irish start coming over here, and that means it comes over big time in the mid 19th century.
Okay.
Between the revolutions that are occurring in the United Kingdom and Ireland, and then, of course, the famine.
The potato famine.
Right.
Yes.
Or the Great Famine.
The Great
as it's called.
Famine.
Or the
Yep.
blight.
Yep.
The blight.
Yep.
Now, it comes over here. The Irish, as we've established, they're not very popular. People aren't really fond of the Irish. And so they're basically just, it's like kind of just among the Irish that it's celebrated?
Primarily. And it's not just the Irish population per se, but there's also a number of organizations within the Irish population. You've got the various churches, of course, primarily Roman Catholic, but you also have the Fenian organizations, the Hibernian organizations. Temperist movements really jump into St. Patrick's Day as well.
Break all those down. Explain what those are.
The Hibernian, and I apologize for those out there who are members of the
Hibernian?
Hibernian
You got it.
Brotherhood.
You got
yes.
it.
But the Ancient Order of Hibernians
And
are
he said nothing. He just stood there.
Go ahead.
nice. The Ancient Order of Hibernians are a fraternal organization based on Irish heritage.
Okay.
And they are less. They're very much pro-Ireland, but they're less militant than, say, the Fenian Brotherhoods. Hibernia is the beautiful little sister of Britannia, is how she's
Hibernia is
described.
one of the names that
Of Ireland.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. The Fenians are a much more militant Irish independence movement, and they really begin to take off in the mid-19th century. We're going to talk about one of the big supporters of the early Fenian Brotherhoods, of course, Thomas Francis Meagher, here in a little bit. So
Okay.
that's the real difference between these two. They're both Irish nationalist organizations. One of them's a bit more militant than the other. We're even going to have, post-Civil War, some Fenian raids attacking Canada in the
You're
late
welcome, Canada. Just saying that ahead of time.
late 1860s, 1870s.
So, okay, so now the Civil War breaks out.
Correct.
And what is it like? Okay, today everybody goes out and drinks, and
Right.
everybody's Irish and whatever. Civil War, what was it like?
Very much that. There is a lot of drinking, a lot of socializing, but there's a lot of games. And we're going to dive into that when we talk about the big St. Patrick's Day celebration in '63 that the Irish Brigade throws for the Second Corps. But there's a lot of games, a lot of races. It's very much competitions, kind of fun competitions, things of that nature.
Okay.
And parades are a big deal. Parades,
Even back then.
on the home front, they're a huge deal. Even the papers and the communities that don't necessarily care for the Irish make note of the parades and things and how big they are. Let's see here. Here we go. This is a newspaper account from the Cincinnati Enquirer from March 18th, 1865, St. Patrick's Day in New York. New York, March 17. St. Patrick's Day was finally celebrated today. The procession of Irish societies was 5 or 6 miles in length and of a very imposing chapter. So, I mean, these are huge. Even if they are primarily of Irish organizations, there's still a lot of them. So miles-long parades in many cases.
That's crazy. I never realized there were that many Irish societies.
Yeah.
Okay, so then they have the parades. The boys in the army. What are they doing in the army on St. Patrick's Day to celebrate? Does the army recognize it as a day like when we were talking about Christmas, and all the things that the army would try to do when possible for the soldiers, so that they could celebrate it? Same thing with St. Patrick's Day, or
It depends on the year of the war. And
Okay.
depends on who's in charge. 63, who's in charge for the Army of the Potomac is General Hooker, Joseph Hooker.
Drinker.
Drinker, partier, seems to actually acknowledge, and we're going to talk about some specifics, but seems to really acknowledge St. Patrick's Day when it occurs. Not so much do we see this in 64, 65.
Okay,
And in 62, everybody's busy.
yeah.
because it's literally the day the Peninsula Campaign kicks off. So everybody's jumping on boats and heading out to.
So the old snapping turtle's not a big fan?
It doesn't appear to be. We don't have a whole lot of accounts of Meade coming down to the Irish Brigade and being like, "Hey boys," that sort of thing. Where Joseph Hooker certainly did.
He's like, "Cut this out. That's good ground you're partying on."
So, okay. So then, what would they do? How would they celebrate them?
Well, they are going to be getting a lot of food and a lot of alcohol together. They will be having...
Shocker.
Yeah. They will, like I said, they're doing a lot of races, especially horse races. But they're also doing foot races, greased poles, greased pigs, all sorts of stuff.
Okay, I'll leave that alone. And then... So it's a competitive thing.
It is during the day. They start the day with religious ceremonies because it is still a religious
Forgive
holiday.
me for what I'm about to do, Lord. Yeah.
And then they end the day, particularly in '63, they end the day with a big soiree that Mar hosts.
Mm-hmm.
And there actually, I've got some accounts of guys from outside of the brigade talking about being invited to this thing.
Can you talk about Mar for a bit?
Oh, yeah, we can talk about Thomas Francis Mar for a little bit. Yep.
Go ahead. Give people an idea who he was.
Well, and Pat, feel free to jump in on this.
Pat, jump in on this one.
I mean, Mar...
Well, not right now.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
No. Now?
Yeah.
No. Now.
Go.
Okay.
You're okay.
I know. All right. Thomas Mar is one of the famous Irish revolutionaries Matt alluded to. In 1848, obviously, there are a bunch of uprisings, rebellions happening all over Europe, but a real big famous one in Irish ancestry and heritage is the 1848 Tipperary. Did I say that right?
Tipperary.
Tipperary.
Yeah.
It's a long way.
It's a long way to Tipperary.
Yeah, that one.
Mm-hmm. What'd you say it was?
Tipperary?
Tipperary.
It's close.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's the leader of a group of Fenians called the Young Islanders, and he's going to lead them, like I said, in this raid against, I guess, some local police forces in the town of Tipperary. They're going to drive him out initially. The police force is going to kind of like bug out of town and be like, "Hey, we need some support," and they're going to roll up deep with lots of reinforcements and drive out this rebellion. It's going to fail, but he's going to become a symbol when he's arrested at the end of this rebellion as one of the fighters for an independent Ireland, because obviously Ireland's for centuries has been fighting with the English over independence and things like that, and he becomes one of the symbols of that. Matt will talk about it. He serves in our American Civil War because he's charged with sedition and treason. He's sentenced to death, and he's sentenced to Australia, the British penal colony systems that they have down there, places like Botany Bay and stuff like that.
Tasmania, I think, specifically.
Yeah, I think he's sent to Tasmania. But he escapes, make his way here, and starts like American Fenian Brotherhood societies and things like that, and is a big part of the what am I looking for here, Matt?
He's an orator.
Yeah,
he's a really good public speaker, and he really drives this young nationalist element within Irish society here in the States towards this idea of an independent Ireland.
He's really big at making this idea catch steam.
Did I misread once that before Fredericksburg, he gave the Irish Brigade this rousing speech and said, if I fall, I'll fall, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then they went and he stayed behind because his knee hurt?
There's a lot of lore about Mar. A lot of it I don't pay attention to. A lot of it I do. So I don't know that one personally.
You never heard that one?
No.
Matt, you never heard that one?
He's in brigade command at that point, too. So I don't know if he would have been right there on the front line anyways, because he's supposed to be
might have been behind the brigade, but up front, right?
Right.
They obviously have that scene in Gods and Generals that dogs him, where they're like, "It's set to be General Mar's position,"
right?
And it's like, whatever.
Yeah, and who's the big star that they make out of the Irish Brigade in that movie?
St. Clair Mulholland, and
yeah.
he's not even in the brigade, or he's not even with the units that they place him with at the time of the battle. They just took St. Clair, Mulholland, and they were like, "Cool, you're a awesome Irish cliche, and we'll just drop you with these other guys."
Well, he was what, the 116th Pennsylvania?
Yeah.
I've got a good description of that he writes in the one of the histories, because he wrote a big history of the Irish Brigade.
His accounts of Fredericksburg are pretty grim.
Yeah, most definitely.
Pretty good. Yeah.
He's a tough character. He becomes, I think, chief of like Philadelphia police after the war. I mean, he's
Well, with a name like St. Clair as your first name, like, yeah, you probably have to be tough because you're getting made fun of a lot when you're a little kid.
I don't know if you're making fun of that guy. He's probably got like some Jack Johnsons and Tom O'Leary.
No, I'm not making. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Exactly. Like, that guy has been made fun of since he was a little boy at school because of his name.
St. Clair, Mulholland.
Yeah. Oh, if it isn't St. Clair.
Ready to fight you here.
She's like, that's enough out of you, Tom O'Leary.
You called me a fanny, did you?
This is why I brought him, Matt.
All right, go ahead. Give me more.
Mar's also cool. I guess I'll just throw this in now. What I like is he's one of the first people to really bring the Irish tricolor flag to prominence. A group of French women who were sympathetic to the Irish independence cause are going to give him this flag around the time of the 1848 rebellion, and he's going to be one of the first people to actually fly the tricolor that you see today.
Now, pause. Does the French flag at that time look like the tricolored? Is it the tricolored
Yes.
flag? Okay, so it's basically they're saying we're basing it on the French flag, but we're going to change the colors.
Yeah, absolutely. So the colors, it was intended to symbolize the inclusion and hoped for union between Roman Catholics and Protestants. The significance of the colors, as outlined by Marr, is as, quote, "The white in the center signifies a lasting truce between orange and green, and I trust that beneath it folds the hands of Irish Protestants and Irish Catholics may be clasped in generous and heroic brotherhood." Quote.
That's nice.
So he's one of the first people to basically be like, "All right, enough. Everybody on one team against the British.
Right.
This is our flag."
Yes.
And
yes,
obviously,
this is my point today. Everybody stop fighting parties
and go fight the British.
and fight the British. Exactly.
God.
Yes.
And then so obviously just
Still us versus them, guys.
just so everybody knows, the Irish tricolor flag doesn't sort of appear. I mean, it's around as a symbol of the uprisings, of the wanted independence at the time, but it doesn't really get a big official sort of usage until the famous 1916 Easter uprising. So when Marr is flying it, it's purely symbolic of the idea of an independent Ireland. And then obviously by the time Michael Collins and all the other guys are
in the home rule debate,
and they're in the post office in 1916, they're using it in more of an official, like, you know, we're not just trying to take over a small police force, like we're trying to take over the nation. We're trying to take back the nation. And so they're flying it there. So, and obviously, you know, Irish independence is gained a few decades after that, and that's the flag that Ireland uses
that we
now.
use today.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I did not know any of that
So
history.
Marr is connected to that, and obviously he comes here in 63 to Gettysburg.
Perfect. What was did the Irish have a flag before that? Do we know this?
The Harp of Erin is oftentimes used by the Irish throughout this period, and we of course see it in their Civil War flags as well.
Right. Yeah, that seems to be the common theme through all the flags, but there's slight differences to what goes around them. But the harp is there. Okay. Go ahead, Matt. What else you got now?
Well, I just wanted to kind of set the stage a little bit. I know we jumped right into Civil War, but I wanted to dial it back, talk about St. Patrick, and then move forward from there.
Great. I was going to ask you.
I can't wait to talk about me.
Yeah.
Who was St. Patrick?
Well, St. Patrick
What does he get a day?
He's a Roman Briton, interestingly enough. He was born in 387 CE, or Common Era, and he was kidnapped and enslaved by Irish pirates as a young teenager. Some accounts say he was about 14. So he's going to be taken to Ireland. He's worked as a shepherd and later wrote that his time as a slave among the Druids and pagans of Ireland helped him turn to God. Now, he would later claim in his memoir, which I believe is called The Confession, and I apologize if I got that wrong, but he would later say that it was a dream or a vision sent by God that he needed to get up and go to the coast, which is where he finds a bunch of sailors that had stopped, and they're who take him back to England.
Okay.
At which point he's going to escape or return to England when he's about 20 years old. and he'd be reunited with his family. At which point he begins to study for the priesthood, and he would be ordained as a priest and then later bumped up to bishop. Now, once he is made a bishop, he is made the Bishop of Ireland, and he's sent back to Ireland.
Okay.
I love the way you said bumped up. They're like, hey, Pat, you're getting bumped up to Bish. Report at 7 a.m., okay?
Yeah.
You got new paperwork.
Now, he's going to be sent to Ireland to spread the gospel.
Thanks, Cardinal.
And he'll arrive in 433. Now, he is going to spend the next nearly 30 years spreading the word of God, converting people to Catholicism, and, of course, the supposed legend of driving the snakes out of Ireland.
Fact.
Yeah, let's talk about the snakes.
Fact.
Actually, what's fascinating about that is that there are no snakes native to Ireland.
Because he drove
them out, silly.
God.
Exactly. So
We all know that Irish history didn't start until after St. Patrick's anyway. So,
well, and there are some folks who have claimed that that's actually a metaphor for the pagans themselves.
he drove the pagans out, those dirty snakes.
Well, you can either take it like
He
that, but
snuffed out the original religion of Ireland.
Right, or I'd like to think it's more that he converts them over to what he's trying to do.
Right, so he didn't literally drive out the pagans, he just turned them into Catholics.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he's going to convert thousands over his almost 30 years in Ireland, and he builds hundreds of churches across Ireland. The beautiful old stone churches that we have in Ireland today, many, I would argue maybe even most, date back to St. Patrick's era.
Okay.
Now, he is going to die on March 17th, 461. Now, that date is a little bit in flux on the year, kind of like when we were talking about St. Valentine. There's a little variation there. I've seen some accounts saying it was as late as 490.
By the way, follow up on St. Valentine's. Someone told me that there are actually two St. Valentines.
There are.
And there's confusion over which one actually gets the holiday.
I'm confused because we're talking about before most people's adoption of the Julian calendar. So when in time are we talking about right now?
No, that's a good point. I mean, this is looking at it from the modern calendar,
Sure.
so 461.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, good. I want to make sure about that.
No, that's an excellent point.
For all of those long time travelers, like who need things in 1,000-year context.
Right.
Like I'm trying to understand the American Civil War, but I need to know what happened about 1,000 years leading up to it.
Right.
Hey, context.
Yeah.
But what's fascinating about St. Patrick is that he is a recognized saint in the Catholic Church, though he was never officially canonized. He didn't go through the canonization process that we have today because it didn't exist.
Okay. Well,
at the time.
that makes sense.
But he is a Roman Catholic saint. He's also recognized as a saint in the Eastern Orthodox Church, the Lutheran Church, the Anglican faith, the Church of England, and the Church of Ireland.
Okay.
So he's pretty well loved across the board.
Now, his national origin, what'd you say, he was an Englishman?
He
He's
is.
a Roman Brit.
Yep.
A Roman Brit.
Yep. This is when Rome still controls. Britannia.
The world,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah. Okay. So he's a Roman Brit.
This is where the Romans were training the British on how to have an empire.
Yes. Yes. We're
We're going to go away soon. This will be your job.
Right. Someday you're going to have to do this. Someday this will all be yours.
Wherever the light touches.
I had friends who were Italian, and they tried to convince me that St. Patrick was Italian.
Oh, interesting.
And I said, I don't think that's right. But they might have heard that he was a Roman Brit.
Right.
And ignored the Brit part and just heard Roman and then thought, well, Rome is in Italy.
Yeah.
And so he was Italian. And they wanted
your jersey is coming out.
Yeah, well, that's the way that person sounded. It was like, hey,
Those are his friends from the disposal place.
you Irish are so stupid. St. Patrick was an Italian. And I go, no, I don't think he was. He goes, yeah, he was. He was an Italian. Are you going to argue with me and my troops? And it's like, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go home.
He was like, here, take this money.
Yeah. Take this money. Now I own you. All right, now so...
So what's interesting about St. Patrick's Day as a holiday, one of the newspaper accounts that I was looking at in preparation for the show today came out of New Orleans. And a lot of the articles being written about St. Patrick's Day at the time, even if the folks or the area wasn't necessarily a big Irish population area, a lot of the newspapers were still writing like historical articles or biblically, or not biblically, excuse me, but religiously historical articles. This is who this guy was. This is why there's a holiday about him, that sort of thing.
Okay.
And they made the comment that as far as religion goes, it's at the time they felt it was one of the most universally recognized religious holidays.
Okay.
Which is kind of interesting. And what they meant by that was across the board, Protestant, Catholic, all variations.
All right, gotcha. All right, so continue on.
Well, I was going to jump into the actual Civil War now.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Jump into it.
Splash.
With the dates of, or the date of St. Patrick's Day throughout the Civil War years, on March 17th, 1861, so just before the war begins, we have federal troops abandoning Camp Hudson in Texas to state authorities. So now the fall of Texas has begun at this point. On March 17th, 1862, and as we've already mentioned, the Army of the Potomac begins embarking at Alexandria, Virginia, for what becomes the Peninsula Campaign. Major General Grant is back in command of the Army of the Tennessee by this point and is concentrating his forces at Pittsburgh Landing on the Tennessee River. So that's the lead up to Shiloh. And of course, we would have skirmishing at Riddle's Point, Missouri as well in 1862. 1863, March 17th, the Battle of Kelly's Ford and the death of John Pelham. Skirmishing at Bealton Station, Herndon Station, and Franklin, Virginia would all occur in 63. Now, in 1864, on March 17th, Lincoln supports emancipation in Maryland. Maryland is undergoing a big constitutional convention at the time. They're prepping for a new state constitution, which would be voted in the fall of 64. Lieutenant General Grant formally assumes command of all federal forces and announces that his headquarters would be in the field with the Army of the Potomac. Skirmishing would occur at Manchester, Tennessee, on Red Mountain in California, and in Corpus Christi, Texas. So we've still got lots of fighting going on there in 64. And then finally, March 17th, 1865, we'll have skirmishing near Fall Creek, North Carolina. Major General Canby would begin gathering forces for what becomes the Mobile Bay Campaign. The siege of Petersburg, of course, continues in 65. And
you guys still there? Yep.
And on March 17th, 1865, Lincoln would speak to the 140th Indiana Infantry, stating at that time, "Whenever I hear anyone arguing for slavery, I feel a strong impulse to see it tried upon him personally."
Yeah, yeah.
So one of the more famous Lincoln quotes there.
See how you like it.
Right. Now, we oftentimes think about the Irish in the American Civil War. We think of course, the Irish Brigade immediately comes to mind. I've got a little Irish Brigade t-shirt on there today. But there's a lot of Irish units in the war because it's the second largest ethnic group in the United States at the time. Germans are slightly higher. But looking at just some, and I do want to emphasize this is some Irish Union and Confederate units. This is not a holistic listing.
Right.
In the Irish Brigade itself, we have the 63rd and 69th New York, the 88th New York, the 29th Massachusetts, later the 28th Massachusetts, and of course, as we mentioned earlier, the 116th Pennsylvania. We also have the 90th Illinois as an Irish
ethno-regiment.
Thank you. The 23rd
Well
Illinois.
done.
Thank you.
The 9th Massachusetts, known as the Irish 9th. The 35th Massachusetts as well, also has a lot of Irish in it.
Sure.
The 7th Missouri is known as the Irish 7th.
Oh, interesting.
The 10th Ohio has a large contingent of Irish in it. And Company B of the 8th Ohio Infantry is actually known as the Hibernian Guard.
See, what most people don't know is when the famine happened in like 48, 49, everybody came to the U.S. There's only like 10 people in Ireland at this time.
Yeah, nobody's left.
They're all fighting
They're all
in
here.
our...
Yeah.
Their men are fighting in our war, and the families are here. So
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Like the English are like, hey, where'd you guys go?
Yeah, it's like, wait a second, there's nobody to beat up anymore.
Yeah.
Now-
We'll focus on the Scots. Again.
Yeah.
Now, we've
Okay.
also got the 35th Indiana Infantry, known as the 1st Irish, and the 164th New York Infantry, the Irish Legion. So that's a lot of Irish ethnic units in the Federal Army. from across the board. And we have also got a number in the Confederate Army as well. At the very beginning of the war, you have the Charleston Irish Volunteers, one of the units helping to encircle Sumter.
Uh-huh.
The 24th Georgia Infantry is one of these Irish Confederate regiments. The 10th Tennessee, probably one of the better-known Irish regiments. They've even got the green Harp of Aaron flag and everything else.
Sure.
The Washington Blues of the Missouri State Guard is a mostly Irish company. Company E, the Emerald Guard of the 33rd Virginia Infantry, part of Stonewall Brigade, and as well as the Bloody 27th. The 27th Virginia Infantry was known as the Bloody 27th because of its large amount of Irish in the unit. Finally, of course, you have the 1st Special Battalion, Louisiana Tigers. We think of them as Creoles and whatnot, but there's a lot of Irish in New Orleans and the area at the time, and so it's quite a diverse unit. Mm-hmm. And, of course, the Davis Guard as well. So a lot of variety on both sides when it comes to Irish.
It is interesting. When in Gangs of New York, there's a scene where basically the Irish immigrants are getting off the boat and they're handed a uniform and a rifle and they're signed up.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a few songs that talk about that too.
Yeah. So that's a real thing. That's okay. Go ahead.
To a point. Again, what that is referencing more is the draft and the fact that you could buy your way out of the draft. And so if you had $300, you could hire somebody else to take your place in the draft. And what was happening is that many of these immigrant groups that were coming over, not just Irish, but especially Irish, were being taken advantage of in that way.
Because they didn't have $300.
You don't have anything. You're brand new here. I'm going to give you $300 if you take my spot in the Army.
Right, okay.
And then they got to collect a war wage on top of it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, okay. And it's
and
basically
sometimes
you're
they're
earning
getting
your
more
keep.
than $300 because as these guys start to get wise to it, they're like, "Well, I'm being offered $500 by that guy." So, I mean, they're getting some money out of it, but they are being taken advantage of because of their basically new to the nation. But the whole idea of as soon as they're stepping off the boat, they're being shoved a musket at them. That's a little
more poetic license on the part of the movie.
It's also like a metaphor for like they're being sold the idea of patriotism. Like, welcome to your new land. Do your part. We're at war.
Fight for it.
What do you have here? Nothing yet? Cool. So, earn your place amongst your new countrymen by fighting for it.
Right. And we're still going to hate you.
So it was kind of like you have a choice, but they're like, it's kind of like the White Feather Society stuff in the First World War where they were like, of course you have the choice not to serve, but so like without shaming them publicly, but it was just a kind of way to lean on them.
Yeah.
You're here with no prospects.
And 300, 500, whatever amount of money you can get is a lot. That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
And
Absolutely.
to just be like,
yeah. When you
basically arrive in this new country and then, hey, I'll give you this if you go and do. Oh yeah. What the hell else am I going to do?
Right. Or you're looking at a tenement and going, well, that sucks.
And where am I gonna get work?
Right.
What kind of work am I gonna get?
Less bullets though.
Yeah.
Less shell fire.
That's true.
There are fewer bullets and shells, but this is what they did, and it's amazing, really. Like, yeah.
Now, we kind of hinted on this a little bit in the opening, but the National Museum of Ireland estimates that approximately 160,000 Irish fought for the Union. I've seen a few variations on that number, some 150,000, but it's right within that area. And about 20,000 folks of Irish ancestry fought for the Confederacy. I've seen some estimates as high as 40,000 for that. Okay, so it's a good chunk of folk, basically 200,000 people. Between North and South fight for the Union. Now, the vast majority of Irish immigrants are, of course, in the northern states because you've got the big cities drawing them in. New York, of course, being well known, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Washington, D.C. But along the coast, you also have an Irish population in Charleston, South Carolina, and a big one in New Orleans as well. So there are a good chunk of Irish in the southern states. It's just not the mass amounts that we see in many of the northern states.
And So in both armies, celebrating St. Patrick's Day would probably be the same, right? The customs and the traditions wouldn't be any different.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
And so go ahead. What do you got on that, like the celebration of it?
Sure. Actually, that fits really well with one of my quotes from St. Patrick's Day from 1862. This comes from Lieutenant Colonel Randall W. McGuire of the 10th Tennessee Infantry. He is at Fort Warren in Boston Harbor. Why do you suppose he's at Fort Warren in Boston Harbor?
I don't know.
He's a POW.
Oh.
By this point, the 10th Tennessee has been captured en masse at Fort Donelson.
Okay.
March 17th. This is St. Patrick's Day. Oh, how I wish that I was with my Irish regiment at Chicago, Camp Douglas, to celebrate the day and cheer the lads in their imprisonment. Mrs. Thayer sent a box to Colonel Hyman and myself today containing fine whiskey, brandy, cigars, cheese, sardines, etc. Had some of our friends visit us this evening and help us enjoy it. So they're going to be somewhat limited into the amount of celebrating they can do, but they're still going to be trying to mark the day in some manner. And he's, of course, pining that he's not with his men.
Right, okay. Okay, go ahead, more.
Well, I wanted to touch on something that you'd said earlier, Pat, in regards to patriotism and things like that. This actually comes from one of the early histories of the Irish Brigade and its campaigns written in 1867. The Irish soldier was therefore a patriot and no mercenary. He had just the same right to fight for America that the Native American had. The Irish, the German, the Pole, and all other exiles have a vested right in the maintenance of the American Union. Now,
so this is like the mid-19th century version of diversity is our strength.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
That's a good way to put it. On the flip side of that, this comes from Alexander Hunter of the 17th Virginia Infantry in his work, Johnny Reb and Billy Yank, which is a 1904 publication. Pick out any thronged thoroughfare 10 Irishmen, and you will find at least 6 honest men. They are the bone and sinew of our land. They rear our stately structures, build our great industrial works, develop our minds, and join heart and soul in our battles. What a happy, devil-me-care, laughter-loving fellow he is withal. In all the troops of the Confederates, they were none truer or braver.
So they're saying 60% of us were honest and fair. That's not bad. That's not bad.
I did find that kind of amusing.
I mean, it could be worse. It could be 60% of us are pieces of shizer, so that's not that bad.
Now, again, 62, we don't have a lot of quotes and things directly referencing St. Patrick's Day, but we do have one from the memoir of Thomas Francis Meagher. On the morning of St. Patrick's Day, the brigade crossed Bull Run, being the second time that many of those in the ranks had passed that now historic stream, and they're being shifted back towards Alexandria to begin the Overland Campaign.
Okay.
Or, excuse me, the Peninsula Campaign.
By the way, I misspoke earlier. Mar was not here at Gettysburg.
No.
He resigns.
You said that?
Yeah, I did, because I speak too fast in my brain.
I don't remember.
His boys are here, but
yeah,
obviously he resigns.
I don't remember you saying that.
He resigns after Chancellorsville.
Okay. So Eric corrected you via text message, and you're now correcting yourself.
Because he told me he wasn't going to allow me to do it. I was like, I'm doing it. You're
do
talking
what?
about. He's like, no, sir, we're rolling with it. I was like, I'm correcting myself.
Oh. Okay. Cool. All right. No, that's fine.
And you guys were talking about Mar, and I was like, I'm jumping. Go.
No, I didn't even catch you say that.
Yeah, I did. It's because his, as Eric joked, all 300 of his boys are here. So.
Cool.
Okay, so
thanks, Tim.
So go ahead, Matt.
Now, I wanted to kind of dive into it. I've got a number of kind of lengthy quotes that come from these various military histories and memoir from the Irish Brigade. And
what are we diving into exactly here?
We're
the celebration of
the celebration of St. Patrick's Day in 1863. This is the big party. This is the one that we have the most writings about.
All right, go.
Specifically, this comes from History of the 9th Regiment Massachusetts Volunteers of the Irish 9th. The anticipation of the coming sport on the 17th acted as leaven to the lethargy and permeated the soldiers of the army to a more or less extent. Adjutant Michael Fallon and Quartermaster Thomas Mooney were given full charge of the entertainments.
Adjutant?
Adjutant. About a week before the eventful
Matt,
celebration.
put that mic to your mouth. Sorry to interrupt you twice in a row right there.
No, that's all right.
Can't hear you.
I just wanted to make sure that
No, yeah.
I could read.
Whatever you... If you angle it down towards your mouth, it'll be easier for you. Yes, now you can look down.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
About a week before the eventful celebration, they announced the following program. There would be a sack race for a greased pig, climbing a greased pole, jumping matches, refreshments, horse racing in the afternoon, and a mock dress parade. We're going to go over some of these.
So, yes.
Prizes of small amounts of money were to be given to the winners, and the pig to the one who caught it. The successful climber of the greased pole would be entitled to a 10-day furlough.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
Which was pinned to the top of the 15-foot pole. A general invitation was extended to the whole division. March 17th opened with pleasant, sunny weather. After the guard mounting, the fun began. Now, the greased pole climbing competition draws a lot of attention. 10-day furlough is huge.
Yeah.
But no one would succeed in capturing it. And coming out of a second history on the Irish 9th, or the 9th Massachusetts, it says, a number of candidates appeared at about 10 o'clock in the morning. These slippery ascensions commenced. One tall, stout fellow made a desperate effort to lift himself from the ground, and after trying for about half an hour, was reluctantly compelled to give it up, having at that time only achieved about an inch.
I'm the youngest person in this room, and you guys are giggling like you're in grade school. Here's the pole, they're climbing a grease pole.
I'm sorry, I just...
Leave it to the Irish to make a public spectacle of climbing a greased pole.
We didn't invent that game. Probably took it from some weird German thing.
Oh, man.
I don't know. I'm just talking out my ass here.
All right, so go ahead. What?
Well,
thanks, Mark.
So now wait, so they climb the pole.
They're trying
to climb the pole, but that's hard to do.
Yes.
It's hard to do that without the grease.
Right.
Yeah. So now they're shimmying up this pole. Nobody gets it. Nobody gets the furlough.
In fact, there's a...
They should have made it a 30-day furlough.
Yeah, they would have killed each other for that. Going back to the first history of the Irish 9th, they comment on that, saying, the furlough continued to flutter in the breeze in sight of the longing eyes until noon, when it was declared the competition off.
Yeah. Aw, poor fellas. What was the... read them again, because there was another one I had a question about.
The activities were... Now, this is the 9th Massachusetts party. This isn't the Irish Brigade's party.
Right.
We're going to get to theirs in a minute.
Okay.
But the 9th Massachusetts had a sack race, the race for a greased pig, climbing the pole, a greased pole, and jumping matches, refreshments, horse racing, and a mock dress parade.
It was a long sack race, too. It was like 500 yards.
Yeah, it is, actually.
Yeah,
I think the Irish Brigade specifically...
Awful.
Yeah, like that's got to be absolutely brutal.
Dude, last time I did a sack race was probably like 8 or 9 years ago, and it was like 40 feet, and it was awful.
Jeez,
500 yards?
500 yards, yeah. Because I remember reading that account last night, as a matter of fact. Yeah, it was like ridiculously long.
Why are we doing this here? What are we doing this for?
What is the pint?
Jesus, Mary! We have 400 more yards to go.
Why did they have to make it so long?
We were on the jumping race, not the horse race.
Oh God, Eric, when did you get here?
So okay, wait. So. Is there a prize for winning this one? What's the prize? Do they have prizes for all of them?
They do.
I mean, besides bragging rights?
Well, it's small amounts of money.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's actual physical bills, dollar bills, y'all.
Yeah.
What greater prize could there be than being the best sack racer?
I don't know.
And the greased pig, you got to keep the pig.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then you and your buddies can eat the pig.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
You share the pig.
Or you keep it to yourself.
Yeah. Or yeah, just hog it. Yeah. All right. And then, okay, so there was another one, though. We didn't hit the one that I had the question about yet there. Oh, the dress parade.
Let me get to that.
Okay.
Because he's got a whole
dresses.
thing about that.
This was an early drag show.
Yeah, they wore fancy dresses.
Not quite.
Oh.
At 11 o'clock, a gill, which is a half cup or about 4 fluid ounces of whiskey, was issued to each man of the 9th. This they shared with their comrades of the 62nd Pennsylvania and had a jolly time. After dinner, which would have been lunch, the horse racing took place. Now, there's a big, long description of the horse racing, so I'm going to paraphrase here. There were numerous races ran that day that were enjoyed by all until about mid-afternoon, and then there was a go-as-you-please was announced of several races that could be officers. It's pretty much only officers being allowed to do these horse races, interestingly enough. But they're going to have a go-as-you-please, which means basically whoever wants to. Took place at a half-mile long track, the riders being expected to turn around at the half-mile mark and return. It was during one of these heats that the quartermaster Mooney, who was mentioned earlier, his horse will collide head-on with the horse of Dr. William Faxon of 32nd Massachusetts. Both horses are killed instantly, according to the account, and the shock of their collision could supposedly be heard a half-mile away.
Oh, it's another one of those long-distance noises.
Yeah. Now, Dr. Faxon got off lightly with a dislocated shoulder and some bruises, but Quartermaster Mooney was sadly knocked unconscious and passes away 12 days later.
Wait a minute. Did you just say somebody could hear 2 horses crashing a half a mile away?
Supposedly. He goes into a lot of detail about how both horses are moving as fast as they could go, and they slam into each other.
I mean, I know that's it is a loud noise, but...
Sure.
I mean, 100 yards away, maybe.
Maybe.
Well, I think he used half-mile because it's a half-mile track, and probably everybody was claiming they heard it.
Well, because they saw it.
Right.
It might be easier to hear it when you see it. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
You don't think some guy was just like a half a mile away? He's like, did you hear that? That sounded like 2 horses.
Was that the sound of 2 horses colliding? Yeah.
That sounded like a horse went down on another one.
Must be a race going on a half a mile away.
Now, to get back to your question, Matt,
yes.
This is again quoting, the mock dress parade of the regiment late in the afternoon had a large attendance, for it was wholly in charge of the enlisted men. The parody of the Manual of Arms and the clever imitation of Colonel Guiney's voice and manner by, quote, Napoleon of Company F, who acted the part of commander, was highly amusing to the spectators and to the regiment generally. As a day of recreation for the troops, it was productive of much good, both mentally and physically. Great regret was expressed among the officers and men of the regiment at the sad accident that befell Lieutenant Mooney. So,
It's like that scene in Black Hawk Down. Is that what I sound like? That's funny, whoop.
Yeah.
Except they were like, you can make fun of us this time.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
This is allowed.
yeah, the mock dress parade's an interesting concept, but it's basically letting the enlisted men run the show.
Okay.
No
So
dresses.
but so when they parody or they're mocking it, besides doing an impression of the colonel, like what else would they?
They're doing the Manual of Arms and things like that.
Yeah, but what's the fun of it? How are they making fun of it?
I think it's because not only is it the colonel doing the instruction, but they're also having other enlisted men do
Other officers.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I've heard some accounts of these where the officers sometimes swap and are in the ranks.
Ah.
Yeah. Now, they don't specifically say that in this history, but it wouldn't surprise me either.
Okay. All right.
Now, the 9th Massachusetts made note that the Irish Brigade was having their own festivities not far away. And I want to kind of dive into that now, too.
Go ahead.
For the Irish Brigade, they're coming out of the memoir of Thomas Francis Meagher. A spacious chapel had been erected of canvas and appropriately ornamented with evergreen wreath, festoons, and bouquet. A new and elegant vestment had been purchased by the men for their beloved chaplain, Reverend Father Corby. Of course, we all know Father Corby. And here, at 8 o'clock a.m., the exercises of the day commenced with the celebration of High Mass, accompanied by martial music. General Meagher and his brigade, with hundreds of invited guests, were present. So they're going to start the day with religious ceremonies. At the close of the Mass, Reverend Father O'Hagan, chaplain of the Excelsior Brigade, Dan
Excelsior!
That's Dan Sickles' old
Man,
brigade.
pig.
Every time I hear Excelsior Brigade or I drive by their monument, I have to go Excelsior. South
If you be
Park.
quiet, I think a whale needs me.
He's going to preach an eloquent and patriotic sermon. So they're going to at least start the day with religious ceremonies.
Right.
And then going into Colonel St. Clair Mulholland's history of the 116th Pennsylvania, he's going to dive right into the fun. St. Patrick's Day in camp was celebrated with the usual gaiety and rejoicing of the men composed of the Irish Brigade. This time-honored national anniversary was observed with all exhaustless spirit and enthusiasm of Irish nature. For days previous, vast preparations had been made, a race course marked out, and on every side, written in large, bold characters, was the following announcement: Grand Irish Brigade Steeplechase. To come off the 17th of March, rain or shine, by horses, the property of, and to be ridden by commissioned officers of that brigade. The prizes are a purse of $500. A second horse to save his stakes, which I'm not familiar with that term. 2.5 mile heat.
To save his stakes, I think that would the first horse would win $500.
Yep.
The second horse would win saving his stakes.
To save his stakes is what is specifically said on this announcement.
If the second horse wins, that means he breaks even.
He breaks even. He gets to keep. Yeah.
You should consult
He
with
gets
your
to keep
friends.
whatever
Like you put your stakes.
Oh, I see.
In order to
Yep.
get,
Okay.
like, do they have to pay to get in?
It doesn't specify that.
Well, to me, it sounds like they do,
You
right?
should ask your friends in Jersey.
Yeah. You guys, what does save your stakes mean? Hey, you break even. You don't have to pay the vig.
And with a pot,
The what? The vigorous. You don't got to pay it.
With
What are
a
you
pot this
talking about?
large, it's very possible that they did have to throw in for it. I mean, $500 is a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah, I would imagine.
Hell, I'll take $500 right
Yeah.
now.
So he doesn't lose anything. He just gets to take his money back. That's what we're guessing it is.
Okay.
And what we say is final. So go ahead, next.
That sounds fair.
Yeah.
It's a 2.5 mile track, best 2 and 3, over 4 hurdles, 4.5 feet high. And I wanted to get your thoughts on this because you're a horseman.
Well,
4 hurdles, 4.5 feet high, and 5 ditch fences, including 2 artificial rivers, 15 feet wide and 6 deep. So these are pretty big hurdles. Hurdles to be made of forest pine and braced with hoops. That sounds pretty darn challenging to me. What were your thoughts hearing that?
I didn't jump horses. I jumped over a log twice.
Okay.
And I was like, that was fun, and I don't need to do that again. And I don't need to press my luck and go any higher than that. But I know that they could jump. I mean, I used to go to the Virginia Gold Cup, and they would have it would be out in the field. And if I recall correctly, they would have a couple of jumps that the race would go over.
Sure.
Like there were a couple of different setups for the different races out in the field, and some of them were jumps with a fake river, puddle of water or something like that.
Right.
16 feet sounds big, but I don't think it's probably not as big as it sounds for a horse to jump.
I remember in the neighborhood growing up, Johnny was a legend because he jumped 6 kids on his bike.
Ooh.
Yeah, he hit that ramp and he made it over 6 kids. Legend.
I wouldn't have wanted to be the 6th kid.
No,
it's not.
Wouldn't want to have been any of them. I wouldn't want to have been Johnny.
No, it's true.
What? So who would be good to ask? I knew if I knew ahead of time, I would ask him. Is this kid? If you don't follow him on Instagram, you should. JP Horsemanship.
I do.
You do? Yeah. He would know that. He's really good with that stuff. But yeah, go ahead.
With an Instagram handle like that, yeah.
You better be. Yeah, you're kind of setting the bar high for yourself, and
Well, that's true.
better live up to it.
Now, getting back to Mulholland's history here, the quartermaster was sent to Washington for liquors and meats and brought to the banquet that was to follow the race and brought for the banquet that was to follow the race the following moderate supply, which constituted the fare 35 hams and a side of ox roasted, an entire pig stuffed with boiled turkeys,
Whoa.
an unlimited number of chickens, ducks, and small game. The drinking materials comprised 8 baskets of champagne, 10 gallons of rum, 22 of whiskey. A splendid bower was erected, capable of containing some hundreds of persons, for a general invitation was issued to all the officers of the Army of the Potomac.
You know, I gotta say, I often criticize our modern society when I see ads for Pizza Hut's, hot dog stuffed crust pizza, or I remember I was at Fridays once and they had a little menu thing on the table there advertising their new boneless buffalo wing burger. So it was a burger with boneless wings on top of it. And I was just like, how disgusting are we? But then when I hear back then they had a pig stuffed with boiled turkeys, it's like, we've been doing this since forever.
People are always people.
Gross.
We talk about turduckins, but what would that be?
Right, what would that be? A
perky.
A perky? A perky.
Or a tig.
Yeah. Or a tig. Or a yeah.
No, she's a comedian.
Well, you can't. We need a third one because the turducken is 3 things.
Right, turducken's 3 things.
Yeah.
Well, he says there's innumerable amounts of chickens, ducks, and small games.
Matthew.
I'm sorry.
Innumerable.
Now, going back to
a paturkin.
Going back to Mulholland, the morning commenced with religious ceremonies, after which the different riders proceeded to dress themselves. The dresses were showy, but some rather incongruous. One officer appeared... Incongruous, that's right. One officer appeared mounted in scarlet, the top of his head crowned with a green velvet smoking cap, the present of his lady love. Uh-huh. The reason he assigned for this particular taste was he was from Galway, and his family had hunted with with the Galway Blazers Club and dressed similarly.
Ooh, okay.
So covered pretty ostentatious.
So lots of things from home,
right,
coming over here and being continued here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. At 11 o'clock, the grandstand was crowded with distinguished generals, officers, and about a dozen ladies. A large concourse of at least 30,000 officers and soldiers had assembled to participate in the fun. Large crowds of soldiers were congregated in the vicinity of the interesting points, which seemed to be, in their estimation, where the leaps are the highest and the ditches the deepest. So they wanted to see some folks crash.
Yeah, of course. Poor horses.
The start was named for 11 o'clock. 10 minutes before that hour, the Commander-in-Chief of the Army of the Potomac, Major General Hooker, attended by all members of his staff, not detained at headquarters or elsewhere on duty, appeared. On the appearance of the Commander-in-Chief, he was greeted by warm cheers, which he gracefully accepted as he took his place on the grandstand. So Hooker's rolling in with his entourage. Mm-hmm. When a fitting opportunity offered in recognition for the hospitable greeting that was accorded him, General Hooker proposed 3 cheers for General Maher and his Irish Brigade. God bless them.
Oh.
Yeah. So a little recognition there, a little love.
Okay.
It was 1 o'clock when General Maher announced that all further operations would be postponed for half an hour and invited the ladies, the generals present, and staffs to a coalition prepared and awaiting destruction at his quarters. And thither the goodly company proceeded. In other words, there's food.
Ah, okay, good. I was like, what the hell are you talking about?
In front of the quarters, 2 Sibley tents had been pitched, separated by a space of 10 yards, which space was enclosed in an awning. In and under these guests throng. Mountains of sandwiches disappeared. With the precision and promptitude of file firing, pop, pop went explosions that preceded the copious draughts of rich wines. So they're popping corks.
Okay.
And these dudes are like, pop, 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 getting crazy.
What attracted most attention, however, and gratified ever the appreciative palate were portions of spiced whiskey punch ladled by Captain Hogan and the Gandy mead of the occasion from an enormous bowl which hold not much less than 30 gallons.
Well, that's a big bowl.
That's a big bowl. Actually, one account says it's not a bowl. It's actually a keg that's been cut in half.
Ah, okay. That makes sense. Or horse trough.
Or horse. Now, following lunch, the additional sport and activities are going to commence. There was a foot race, 1.5 mile distance, best of heats open to all non-commissioned officers and privates. The winner to receive $7. The second place person, $3. Second event was casting weights. The weights to weigh from 10 to 14 pounds. The winner to receive $3. Third, running after the soaped pig. The prize to be the man who holds it. Fourth, a hurdle race, 1.5 mile distance, open to all non-commissioned officers and privates. The winner to receive $7, and the second, $3.
Like a foot race?
Mm-hmm. A hurdle race, yeah, so you're jumping stuff.
I'd be down on the first hurdle. Yeah.
Well, this next one would
It's actually horse jumps.
What?
Oh, it's horses?
Yeah, they're not running the hurdle race on foot.
this one
they're
is,
jumping
I'm
horses.
pretty sure, is actually on foot.
Fair enough.
Because they talk about the horse races earlier in the day, but they're specifically calling this out for the non-commissioned and privates. But it is possible. They don't specify, but it seems to me a foot race. Now, there's a wheelbarrow race. We all remember those from elementary school.
Yeah. Yep.
The hurdles now are a foot race.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah. Eric.
Come on, Eric.
God, Eric. Cool.
It's all right. I'll self-flagellate when I get home.
Now, for this wheelbarrow race, the contestants were to be blindfolded and limited to 6 soldiers of the Irish Brigade. The winner to receive $5, the distance to be decided on the ground. So they didn't even have a track set for it. They're just going to be eyeballing it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, apparently.
Let's just run until we tell you to stop? Well.
6th was jumping in sacks, as we were talking about earlier, to a distance of 500 yards. The winner to receive $5.
500 yards?
When we talked about that earlier, did you tell us that the prize was only $5?
No.
And so I'm going to jump in a sack for 500 yards for $5. No thank
It's context. Remember that as a private, you only got paid $13
No,
a month
I understand
anyway,
that.
so
I
it's
understand
like
that.
But
a week and a half's worth of pay.
500
still.
yards is still not enough for me to, yeah.
1860 or not.
Yeah. Now you do it, it's a month's pay, 2 months pay, I'll do 500 yards.
Mm-hmm.
2 months pay and a rum ration.
And a rum ration.
Cool.
This isn't the Navy.
Well, you were describing them getting the gills.
The
and I was
gills,
like,
yeah.
that sounds like a rum ration.
Now, a 7th activity is actually dance-related. A contest on the light fantastic toe, consisting of Irish reels, jigs, and hornpipes. The best dancer to receive $5, the second best $3, to be decided by a judge appointed by the chairman.
See, $5 to dance or $5 to go 500 yards in a sack.
$5 to dance. I'm going to do that, yeah. And I can't dance.
Dance machine.
The amusements of the day were followed by a grand entertainment at night, theatricals, and recitations. Many a health was drank, and many a friend was toasted. Flowing bumpers, loving glances at the fair ones, songs and toasts went freely round. So lots of booze being
Now, let me ask you this. Have you encountered any accounts of the non-Irish, the Irish haters, and how they react to seeing these festivities going on? Or
it's interesting. I haven't found accounts of the Irish haters per se, but I have found a couple of accounts of officers outside of the Irish Brigade that were invited to witness this, and some of them aren't really thrilled.
They
by
think
what
that they're
seeing.
a bunch of slobs and white trash drunkards.
Concerned about the extent of the activities and the danger of some of the activities. Seems to be the seems to be the prevailing opinion.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, were the Scottish soldiers present in the American Civil War doing things like the Highlander games? Because those were also dangerous. They're like, let's throw a big rock, laddie. Let's let this big tree and throw a tree limb.
Yeah. Lots of hernias.
Yeah, like, you know,
That's actually a great question, Pat. I
wondering.
did not find any accounts specifically by the 79th New York, Cameron's Highlanders, but I'm certain there was some sort of variation on that. Because, again, this would have been done late winter quarters. The Army's looking for ways to keep these guys entertained. It wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if somebody's like, hey, let's go start throwing some friggin' tree trunks.
let's do the Highlander games.
Right. Yeah.
Now, getting into some of those invited officers, this actually comes from First Lieutenant Josiah M. Faville of the 57th New York Infantry.
You were looking at it upside down.
I was. He's talking about his visit to this party by the Irish Brigade. The conditions were simple, that none of the commissioned officers of the division could ride. He's talking about the horse races, which was sufficiently liberal. A crowd of officers presented themselves aspirants for honors as well as prizes. Brigadier General Thomas Francis Marr, glorious in fancy undress uniform, liberally covered with gold braid and followed by a jolly lot of staff officers, rode about the course, master of all he surveyed. Most of the general officers of the Army, with their many lady friends, were invited. Among many notables riding in the train of the commander-in-chief was the Princess Salm, a beautiful and fearless horsewoman. Major General Joseph Hooker looked superb, followed by a great crowd of staff officers and retinue of mounted ladies. So he's really commenting on the folks that came out to see this. The race was a great success. There were many falls, many horses injured, and a lot of riders. In the evening, General Marr gave a reception, and of course, all the brigade and other officers with their staffs were invited. Zook, Broom, and I attended. Within a large hospital tent mounted upon a table in the center stood an immense punch bowl filled to the brim with the strongest punch I ever tasted.
Of course.
All were invited to partake in such a jolly gathering. Handsomely dressed fellows I never saw before. The Irish Brigade was in its glory. It understood the situation, was master of it, and was quite immortalized itself. There was the inevitable quarrel. How could it otherwise have been complete? The general and the brigade surgeon ended in challenging each other to mortal combat, and for a time matters assumed a threatening aspect. The following morning, however, when the effects of the nectar had subsided, the surgeon apologized in due form, and peace resumed her loving sway. This comes specifically from his published diary, the diary of a young officer serving in the armies of the United States during the War of the Rebellion. So it's a really interesting observation. Now, this is actually from a gentleman in one of the units that does very well here at Gettysburg, the 8th Ohio. Okay? General Marr's Irish Brigade formed part of Hancock's division of the Corps, and the 17th of March, St. Patrick's Day, was observed by the brigade in true old-fashioned Irish style. Their camp was on the plain just above us, and the entire Corps was considered as invited guests. General Marr presided and was dressed in the character of a, quote, an Irish gentleman of the ancient times. Generals Hooker, Hancock, French, Sickles, Carroll, and numerous others appeared on the platform, and the grounds surrounding the track for the hurdle races were crowded with officers and men. The hurdle races were splendid, spiced with a sufficient number of tumbles, dismounted riders, collisions, spills, somersaults, etc., to make the scene ludicrous. Greased poles and greased pigs came in as sideshows, and in fact, there was enough fun to drive all the blues from the camp for any length of time.
It reminds me of, you ever watch the old John Ford cavalry movies?
Some of them, yep.
And it is, you got Victor McLaughlin plays like the big hulking Irish sergeant who's always after his whiskey and all that. And then but there's Irish humor throughout the whole thing, even if the people aren't themselves Irish and the characters aren't Irish. And but they do things like that. These crazy races, and there's this one scene I can't remember which movie it is. I think it's I don't remember which one it is, but they're doing these horse races where they're just doing these crazy stunts where it's like, standing on the backs of two horses.
Right.
And, all that, and then jumping like that. And so that's what I'm picturing in my head when I'm hearing all these things. It's like crazy Hollywood stuff, but it's real life.
Right.
Yeah.
Now that's the big party. The '63 St. Patrick's Day event is the big party that everybody seems to be writing about. And we don't have nearly as much material coming out of '64, '65.
What's the Army of the Potomac doing around St. Patrick's Day in '63?
They're coming off the Maryland campaign, the Fredericksburg campaign, and the Mud March.
Right.
So they're in.
But I mean, specifically at that time, what is going on with them?
They're rebuilding.
They're rebuilding.
Yep. This is that period following Fredericksburg and the Mud March. Burnside has been removed. Hooker's now in command, and he is rebuilding not only the Army, but the morale.
Morale, that's what I was getting at.
Yep.
So he's, this is going on, and it's helping to build that esprit de corps, or
Right.
however you say it in
Yep.
French or whatever that is. Is that French or
It
Latin?
is.
It's
It's
French,
it's
right?
French.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it sounds French.
Well, and even
Is that French or Polish?
Definitely.
Is that
it's
French
definitely
or
French.
Armenian?
Polish.
Okay.
It's Armenian.
Thank you.
Definitely not French. Whatever.
well,
Yeah.
even the gentleman in the 8th Ohio comments that it was enough fun to drive all the blues from the camp for any length of time. So
Yeah.
everybody's
having a good
conscious.
time.
Yeah, everybody's conscious that the Army's kind of been.
You're blowing off some steam.
Yeah.
Except for those officers from outside units, they're not having a good time.
Oh.
That's what you just said. This is dangerous.
Well, they're recognizing it as a good time for the Army, but yes, they
Yeah.
recognize it as dangerous as well. Now,
Somebody's going to get hurt.
yeah.
What's been fascinating about this research, Matt, and one of the reasons why I like doing these events is that you're diving into an aspect of Civil War history that you don't necessarily talk about a lot.
Right. You're
and
welcome.
Thank you. And I'm really not finding, or did not find, a lot of accounts from Confederates, which seems to fit with the newspaper accounts that I have as well. The Southern papers, other than a few sources that have Irish populations, New Orleans, Charleston, things like that, for the most part are not talking about St. Patrick's Day. Or they're mentioning them in passing. They're doing March 17th was St. Patrick's Day, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Celebrated by the Catholics, stuff like that.
Right.
They're not really going into a lot of depth, and we're not seeing a lot of discussion of it in some of the Confederate works that I looked at.
Where would you say they hate the Catholics more, in the North or in the South?
Oh, that's a good question.
In the South.
I'm going to guess the South.
I actually remember.
Because I think they still hate them in the South.
Yeah.
Well, the Klan,
The Klan does, yeah.
Yeah, the Klan does.
Okay, I'm sorry for Southern listeners. I don't mean to lump you in with the Klan.
Right.
But the Klan still does.
Yeah, they absolutely do. And it's interesting. I remember when I was a much younger man and I was getting into Civil War history, but I was still attending. I still try to attend church regularly, but I was an altar boy at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked my priest about the Civil War and what was going on in the South, specifically.
He said, everyone was on vacation.
And I had actually.
Was he Irish?
My priests were not Irish.
Oh, I had an actual off the boat Irish priest.
That's awesome.
It was awesome. Father Flanagan. He was the best.
That's a great name
yeah.
too.
Oh, it was perfect. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine. I asked him specifically about Catholics in the southern states, and he basically said there wasn't a whole lot of them.
Yeah.
Focused primarily around the cities and things, as opposed to in the northern states where, yes, you had mass concentrations in the cities of Irish, but then they were spreading out from there.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them moving westward and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lot of Irish, and some of the stats I have regarding that is prior to the Civil War, 1846 to 54, more than 1 million Irish immigrants come to the United States. The United States was by far the most popular destination of the approximately 2 million Irish that will flee the potato famine and the resulting poverty that followed. So,
Are you Catholic, Pat?
I was born in a Catholic family.
he's non-practicing.
Yeah, like the rest. Well, you're practicing still.
I try
right?
to be, yeah.
And Eric, you want to be a priest, right?
I try
What?
to be respectful.
With 2 kids, that's going to be interesting.
I'm not practicing either.
Oh, okay. So Matt's the only one that tries to practice.
Yeah.
Okay. Good for you. I can't. get up that early. You're lucky I got here today for 10 o'clock.
Well, they have 5 o'clock mass on
Yeah, but I'm not going to do that. That's
He's
my
like, I'm
social-
already asleep at that point.
Yeah, basically.
I'm getting old.
Yeah, I am.
I'm awake for 4 minutes a day.
It depends on the sun. If the sun's out till 9, I'm up till 9, and then I don't feel like I need to go to bed until after that.
What do you like? Go to the same school Puxatawny Phil went to?
Yeah, basically.
Oh man, I found a reference to Groundhog's Day tying into St. Patrick's Day.
Really? What?
Both the Daily Intelligencer out of West Virginia and the White Cloud, Kansas Chief in 1863 and 1865 make comments on how bad the weather was on Groundhog's Day, and they hope that St. Patrick will bring better weather when it rolls around to his day.
See, he's like Weather Christmas Santa. What am I looking for?
Yeah.
St. Patrick's gets rid of snakes and brings you fine clovery weather.
Right. He's a gypsy in a bottle.
Except I don't know where that comes from because we have sayings like fine Irish weather to describe crappy rainy days like
Well, that's
today.
That's the sarcasm.
We're recording in some fine Irish weather
Yeah.
today.
No, that's the beauty of the Irish humor. It's very dark. It's very sarcastic. It's self-deprecating.
Well, that's why
it's
our
all those
songs
things.
are so happy sounding because if you listen to the lyrics, they're miserable. It rains.
Yeah.
The British, coming back to that.
Right.
God.
You
the
have no
potatoes.
arms. You have no legs.
Yeah.
Ugh, Johnny, we hardly knew ye. It's like, jeez. Yeah, I know. It's a happy culture we've got. But it's funny because I don't think of it as sad and depressing because my Irish family was always jovial. We always had fun. We always laughed. Sense of humor is very.
I was saying the songs are.
No,
Listen
I
to
know,
the lyrics.
but you would think that coming from that type of a culture with sad songs and rain all the time, that you'd be pretty depressed. You'd be like someone who lives in Seattle.
No, my family was stereotypically gregarious. They
Yeah,
were
mine
huge
too.
And loud. And
Well, I think a lot of that too is not pushing back against the stereotype, but it's making the best of a situation. I mean, you gotta laugh
You
or
have
else
to.
you cry.
Right. And that's why I think it bothers me so much today that we're not allowed to laugh at anything because I know, I guarantee you that part of the reason why my people, when they came over here, our people, when they came over here
The
and
people
they
of your people.
the people of my people.
and they had to deal with all of the misery that they dealt with, and then within a very short time, you have an Irish Catholic president. I mean, they blew his head off, but still, he got in.
Who's they? I'm just kidding.
Let's not get
It's
into
funny.
that.
Earlier when you were talking, I was thinking about a good point.
The Protestants, that's who it was.
That's what I mean.
Here we go.
I was relating. It was payback for Lincoln.
Yeah.
Going back to another conspiracy. Okay, seriousness though. I was thinking about like when you were talking about just the ways we can't laugh at certain things
Yeah.
anymore. And earlier we were talking about a time when the Irish weren't so popular and we were saying things about the Irish racism and I said like no Irish need apply. You think about the Mel Brooks movie Blazing Saddles.
Yes.
One of the best moments of that movie has got some really bad language where
yeah.
they kind of offend everybody, but the butt of the joke is that they don't want the Irish.
Right.
They're the sheriff's talking about who they're going to keep in the town.
Yes.
And they basically say, okay, we'll keep so-and-so and so-and-so.
But no Irish.
But we don't want the Irish. By the way, Mel Brooks could not make a movie today.
No, he couldn't.
He has specifically said he couldn't make
Yeah.
that movie today.
And the
Couldn't
thing
make any
is,
movie today.
the thing is though that Mel Brooks movies were mocking bigots.
Everything. Society. the
Well,
industry,
society, but
literally
everything.
everything.
Yeah, but I mean, bigotry was like at the top of his list.
Absolutely.
I mean, he was in World War II, and he's this Jewish guy in the United States Army, and he told the story about he used to. There were, I forget where they were, but they were somewhere, and the German line wasn't too far away. At least the outposts weren't. And he started singing across the German line, and he was singing some goofy song that was completely inappropriate for
Sure.
for the situation, but the Germans responded in kind and everything, and he said, "This is also stupid. Like it's also stupid. Like we're having this war, and they hate Jews, and I'm a Jew, and I just sang that, and we had some kind of a connection and everything, and that like colored his movie making experiences when he was doing comedy because you laugh at the things that bother you, and that was my point. Was with the Irish people, we laughed at the things, we laughed at our misfortune. And so that what that does is that takes away someone else's ability to mock you. It's like
I think that's true.
It was our first move against the British.
No, it was our first move against American society.
You're right.
Was to it's the old if you recall, if you ever watched Full House, and if you remember the episode when Stephanie Tanner had to get glasses and she was afraid to wear them in class, and Joey Gladstone said to her beforehand, he said, "Well, look, Steph, before they laugh at you, make them laugh with you."
Yeah.
And so she went in, and she wasn't wearing her glasses, and the teacher's like, "Stephanie Tanner, aren't you supposed to be wearing your glasses today?" And she goes, "Oh, that's right, I forgot." She goes into her bag and pulls out those big goofy ones that are like twice the size of your head, and everybody laughed, and from that moment on she didn't have a problem wearing glasses.
There you go.
And that's what the Irish did.
I am mesmerized by what has just taken place. That was cool.
This is almost every day. Dude, he hit me with a chitty chitty bang bang reference the other day.
And that's okay.
Yes, I did. Yeah. No, but you hear my point, right? We made you laugh with us about our own
Sure.
discomfort and our own violation of rights and dehumanizing treatment. And sooner or later, people go, "Why?"
I mean, Roberto
not so bad.
Benigni did the "Life is Beautiful."
Yeah.
Like literally, that's that concept. I mean, they used humor and laughter to emotionally escape from the fact that they were in a concentration camp.
Yeah, you have to use it. You can't, this idea that humor has to be approved. I'm hearing this talk today, like, you gotta, it's not appropriate. It needs to be approved. There needs to be, I don't even know what the frig they're talking about, but it's ridiculous, but it's actually scary because most people aren't treating it like it's ridiculous. People are like, I wonder if we should do that. And you just, all of the progress that any group has ever made in society was made, I believe, because of humor. Like, if you look at Don Rickles.
That's kind of what St. Patrick's Day is. It's a day to laugh at, like the Irish laugh at themselves. They go out, they play up all of, in America, I know for a very long time over in Ireland, they did not celebrate the way we celebrate in America.
No, because they're safe here. Safer.
In recent years and decades, it's become more of the similar American-style celebration in Ireland and other places.
Right.
But it's kind of a parody of the culture itself. We throw on the big shamrocks. Like, I got this dope scarf on right now. Like, I love this scarf, but I'm not going to wear this year round.
No. Or those like big like off-white sweaters, those things, they're kind of like this color.
The ones that look like every old Scot. They wear the hat you have, the sweater, and they mumble in the brogue in the Irish.
Right.
Kind of sound like pirates.
Right. I hate that thing. I have one in my closet, still in the original plastic. It came from Ireland. Like, it's a real Irish sweater.
They all try to give you directions. They're like, first you're going to turn left down at the road, and then you're going to turn right when you get to Tom's Sheep Farm there, and then you're going to go like 6 miles, kilometers, whatever. And they're like Canadian Irish
Look
pirates.
for the river that we've tinted green.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's Chicago.
That's Chicago.
Yeah, Chicago.
Yeah.
Shake down.
And we don't get mad when we see someone who's not Irish wearing a shamrock or an Irish flag scarf like Pat has or something.
Everybody's Irish on St.
Everybody's
Patrick's
Irish,
Right.
yeah. Because 60% of us, according to that one guy, are nice, gregarious people, and we're very welcoming, and we're just upright people.
40% of us are Eric.
I'm not even Irish.
That's the joke.
That's the joke.
Oh my god.
And you're angry. No.
No, yeah. So it's life is stupid and funny and interesting. You have to laugh. You absolutely have to laugh. And the Irish are good at it.
Irish are very good at it.
Irish humor, Jewish humor,
Laughing through adversity.
two of the funniest. Yeah.
African American
Absolutely.
humor. I mean, think about how many killer comedians we have today that are.
Oh my god,
that are
Dave
black.
Chappelle.
Dave
Or Richard
Chappelle.
Pryor. While we were
Pryor.
talking,
Yes.
I was thinking, like, because all of us
Eddie
are
Murphy.
in our
Eddie
30s
Murphy.
and 40s and things like that, and all I was thinking
Chris
about
Rock.
was all the famous comedians that we all probably mutually like the Colin Quinns, the Richard Pryors, Jay Moores, Dennis Leary's, and Dave Chappelle. And all I could think is like, none of the comedians we grew up liking could exist in the current world.
Oh no.
And the ones that do, they either exist like a guy like Chris Rock who has the resume behind him already.
Yeah.
To kind of keep turning in, Adam Sandler movies now
Yeah.
because he just can.
Yeah.
They're not funny.
They're awful.
But I've seen Chris Rock's Bigger and Blacker, and that's one of the funniest stand-up acts I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah, he could get away with it.
It's like Eddie Murphy gets to do all the Dr. Dolittle movies, but I've seen Eddie Murphy raw and Delirious. I know
Oh
who
my
you
God,
are.
yeah.
I know who you are.
He was great.
Wasn't it Raw where he was wearing that like
the red.
bright red pleather suit? Oh my
Dude,
Yes.
in
God.
Delirious, he's got the purple
Ridiculous.
one. He's got like the print
Yes,
suit on.
yes.
Dude, it's
You
ridiculous.
can't. Yeah. Yeah. No. It's.
But like none of them could exist. So I like when we laugh at ourselves.
And it's only 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
10 years ago, that was still
That's
around.
why I like you guys. You guys make me laugh at myself more than I used to. Especially Eric. Eric just lives to make fun of me.
Absolutely.
Like we're
What are
in,
friends for?
We're
Exactly.
in my so Eric's
exactly
in my
right.
basement. We're building. We're finishing my basement. Right. We're doing all this framing and all this random stuff. And at any time Eric can make a joke at my expense, he does.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Like he doesn't even hesitate. Like in my own house.
No, he does that to me too. He does it to me. Yeah. No, it's the same thing. He's. That's why I keep him around. He's not impressed with me at all.
Him and Shania Twain.
And
how do we impress
It don't impress me much. Exactly. I don't know
What does it take, Eric?
I don't know if I want to. I think if I do impress him, I think then I'm done. I'm toast.
Yeah.
I don't know what it would take to impress me. There's not a whole lot that impresses or surprises me anymore.
I think like maybe if I fell off a 34-story roof and survived, he'd
Well,
be
I
like,
mean, that's
I
pretty,
know guys that fell from higher than that.
see,
That's-
you can't win with him.
Time
Yeah.
out. That's also pretty dramatic that you went right there. Like, are you okay, bud?
No, fell, not through myself, fell. Like, I was up there, I don't know, roofing or something.
It's not going to go
that's-
swan dive off of the roof of the bank building on the
Just the
square.
context that Matt is off the ground is just perplexing. Like, I do roofs for a living, so there it makes sense.
Yeah.
But like, Matt, why are you that high in the air? I'm concerned.
I'm not. I wouldn't go that high in the air. That's too high for me. Even on an airplane, that's why I don't fly.
I don't like ladders.
What the hell is this show about? I've lost track
my
now.
second
We're talking
birthday.
about
We're
Irish
talking about
stuff.
Mel Brooks movies in the Civil War.
St. Patty's Day extravaganza.
People climbing greased poles and whatnot.
Irish people climbing grease poles.
Stuffing pigs with turkeys.
That's true. We did mention
What kind of
that.
monsters
A
did
paturkin.
do that?
Paturkin.
Turkin.
I think that's the best one.
Yeah. Well, you got to have 3.
All
you
right.
said there were chickens everywhere.
Are we sufficiently off the rails?
Yeah, we're totally off the rails,
that's
and
good.
we've
There's no time.
there is no time. So, please, Matt, continue.
Well, I just wanted to kind of move towards wrapping it up with kind of covering a few accounts of St. Patrick's Day in the late war, 64, 65.
I have told you there is no time for that.
No, that's
Listen
okay,
here, Martin.
Robert. Yeah,
Martin Robert, Sheenley.
leave
take
him
time.
alone. We can do it. Matt, go ahead. Don't listen to him.
Now, this comes again from Irish Brigade and its campaigns, one of its earliest histories. St. Patrick's Day, 1864, the last celebration of St. Patrick's Day in camp was observed with all due solemnity and with the usual sports peculiar to the occasion. After the anniversary High Mass, which was this time celebrated by Father Willett alone, Father Corby of the 88th having resigned and returned to his monastery in Indiana, the various regiments of the brigade mustered on the race course, where a stand house was erected. Underneath this was a spacious refreshment room in which the officers of the brigade dispensed sandwiches and whiskey punch to the invited guests. Amongst the visitors were Generals Meade, Humphreys, Warren, Crawford, Griffin, Bartlett, Webb, Miles, Mott, Marr, Ayres, Hunt, Smythe, Hayes, de Tourbillon, Pierce, Macy, Wentworth, and Ramsey. Colonel Nugent was the clerk of the course. So,
The clerk of the course.
yeah, I get kind of a master of ceremonies, I'm guessing. But, I mean, Snapping Turtle showed up to this one,
Yeah.
64.
A lot of them showed up to that one.
Yeah.
So wait, is that the end of the war for William Corby when he goes back to his monastery? Like, is he done?
Yeah.
So he's on his way to the, helping to establish Notre Dame.
Yeah, Fair Touch Corby.
You know, what's that? You said
Fair
Fair
Pass.
Touch, Fair
Fair
Pass
Pass,
Corby.
yeah.
Tell that story. People are going to want to know.
That's just a reference for all the folks who went to Notre Dame. I did not go to Notre Dame, but I had a bunch of friends who went there, and there's a big mural of Corby, and he's kind of doing the hands in the air, holy look, and they refer to it as
Isn't there the same statue that we have over here?
Touchdown?
At Notre Dame? Our Father Corby statue, isn't there a duplicate of it?
I think there's a duplicate
surprise
of it,
me.
yeah.
Yeah. And apparently this one's not in the right place, I'm told, from
It's
where
close
It's
enough.
close enough.
Okay.
There's so many things that aren't in the right
What
place
I did
there.
learn is that
There.
sculpture and the sculpture on top of the Pennsylvania Monument were done by the same guy, and that those cannons are done from those statues are done from melted down cannons,
Which is
artillery
awesome.
Pieces.
Interesting. I haven't heard that part about the cannons, but here's one that I've heard about Father Corby, and I wonder. I should have asked this on the myth busting one with Tim the other day, but I had heard one that the reason the what do you call it? The football team is called the Fighting Irish. Notre Dame is called the Fighting Irish, is because before a game, Father Corby was saying a prayer over the team or something, and passed the moniker on to them. He said, "Now you are the Fighting Irish." And have you heard that before? I heard that from a guide years ago, and
It wouldn't surprise me, but I have not heard that story personally. What I'm familiar with Corby is that he is very well known for his final absolution here at Gettysburg, but he had already done that 10 months before as well. He did that at Antietam too.
I'm sure he would probably do it every time.
I would think so.
Antietam, he did it more like Kevin Costner in Dances with Wolves. Here, he had like a sit-down mass where he was like up on the rock.
What did Kevin Costner do in Dances with Wolves?
At the beginning, where Kevin Costner gets on the horse and does that like suicide ride.
Oh,
up and
he
down the line.
just did a drive-by prayer.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
basically, like very loose paraphrasing. The guys are going into battle before Corby's had the opportunity to do this, and he's basically like, "Not on my watch. These guys are getting their absolution."
He's like zipping by. He's like,
and he's
"May the Lord bless and keep you."
there's a very famous painting of him sort of like riding up and down the line with his hand in the air, delivering the absolution, and I guess his robes get pierced a number of times.
Oh, yeah, he's under fire.
but he's never hit. Oh yeah, it's like just like he's under fire.
Absolutely.
Okay, Father Corby.
So here it's a little more like it's visually stunning because they're not directly in danger, but they're very close to where they're going into fight. So it's kind of like
Yeah.
we can hear it, we can smell it, we can do everything but touch it. But at Antietam, he was like physically getting shot.
Okay. that's
Drive-by
interesting.
absolution.
Yeah.
Yep.
Nice.
Right.
That's like being baptized with the Super Soaker.
What? Oh, I get it. Okay.
Now, going back to looking at the games and things going on, several flat and hurdle races followed the opening of the sports, the horses making fine time, especially Colonel Nugent's horse Harry, who won once or twice. 2 or 3 accidents marred the pleasure of the day, by one of which Second Lieutenant McConville, of the 69th, received the fracture of the skull, which terminated fatally shortly thereafterwards. Colonel Van Schleich of the 7th New York was also severely injured. So 64, we're still partying, we're still racing, we're still getting guys killed.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is also from the 64 St. Patrick's Day, and this comes out of the history of the 35th Regiment, Massachusetts Volunteers. On the 17th, what remained of the 9th Corps fell in at 5:30 in the morning. Adjutant, before moving, reading an order about straggling, and by the way, straggling was also known, almost unknown in this campaign. The Teamsters were ordered to tell the citizens that they were bound for the Chunky Bend, but that the band was struck up St. Patrick's Day in the morning and home again. And the report quickly circulated that we were bound for Annapolis and in Maryland. With light hearts, the boys stepped off that morning. Thus we parted from the 4th and 23rd Corps. Our tired campaigns of the winter hardship, they remained to follow Longstreet towards the Virginia line, then to join General Sherman in the campaign to Atlanta. We, by the long route over the mountains, marched to face Longstreet again in the Wilderness Campaign. So this is 9th Corps around Knoxville, Tennessee. They're finally being ordered back east. So,
well, that is. Do you know the St. Patrick's Day Parade in New York? Did you happen to come across anything, or do you happen to know the history, where that starts, when that starts?
I don't know when it starts. Okay, I wasn't looking for a specific start date for that parade, but it's definitely happening. Again, we kind of.
You mean at this time?
Oh yeah.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's happening during the Civil War. It's not. I would say it's probably bigger back then than it is now. They're talking about it being 5-6 miles long with all these societies.
Oh, that was the St. Patrick's Day parade in New York that you're talking about.
Yep.
Okay.
A
Sorry.
simple Google search says March 17th, 1762 is the date of the first St. Patrick's Day parade in New York City.
Wow.
Thanks, Pat.
A simple Google search.
Appreciate that, buddy.
Matthew.
No,
look
I
at
just
that.
like to throw small shade because he wasn't. If he wanted to find it, he would have found it. He was busy doing other things.
No, he was looking for more intricate details
I know.
and stuff. Yeah, it's okay.
get-
This isn't about the New York St. Patrick's Day parade. It's about St. Patrick's Day and the Civil War. So, cut him some slack.
Thanks, guys.
I love you.
Oh, Homer, leave him alone.
I love you, man.
All right, go ahead.
I just wanted to wrap it up with the St. Patrick's Day on the lines at Petersburg.
Sure.
Okay, so this is St. Patrick's Day, 1865, before Petersburg, Virginia, March 17th, Friday, St. Patrick's Day. We attended the celebration at the camp of the Irish Brigade, and then in parentheses he wrote, so-called. Of course, by this point, the Irish Brigade has been disbanded as a full command. The sports were rough, and after seeing one colonel and 2 enlisted men thrown from their horses and injured so that they will probably die, I returned to the camp satisfied the Irish celebrations are dangerous amusements. Hurdle
Here
races.
we go again.
Yeah, hurdle races and ditch jumping were the principal features of the games. I like a good horse race and a good run, but such sport as I saw today is not to my liking. The
What is
enemy.
wrong with people? There were always these nervous Nellies. Always, and so I thought this was a new thing in the modern nanny state, but
Well,
this is
This is not a Nervous Nelly character either, because
Really?
he ends this quote by saying, "The enemy opened fire but ceased when they found it was a celebration." And this quote comes from Lieutenant Colonel Elijah Hunt Rhodes in his book, All for the Union.
all right.
So, yeah, he is definitely not a Nervous Nelly, but even
General
he is...
Early was late.
He
Elijah
was.
Hunt Rhodes.
Fantastic.
I'll forgive him that. But all these other people, though, with I just don't like those games. They're too dangerous. Somebody's gonna put an eye out or hurt themselves.
I feel like there's some judgment. Like, look at these primitive Irish. All they know how to do is do dangerous, wild things. No sophistication.
Yeah. No, yeah. No polo sticks. No polo sticks. No lacrosse nets on a stick things. What are those called?
Oh, dear Lord.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, look at it. Oh, look, honey, it's the Irish again throwing poles.
Or climbing them.
Or yes.
They've greased the pole.
Yes, they've greased the poles and they're trying to shimmy up them again.
For 10 days off of work. Peasants.
Yes. Yeah, someone should just give it to them.
Now, that's my first-person accounts and things like that about St. Patrick's Day. I did find a number of newspaper references if you had any interest in those, but we've kind of been covering them as we went.
Yeah, I mean, what do you got? Here, let me look. Let me look at them. I'm going to peruse them real quick here.
Well, they're pretty tiny print.
Oh, great. Well, oh my Jesus. You were going to read this?
No,
Oh.
I was going to tell you what they're about.
Holy moly!
You could have told me. I would have brought my magnifying glass, but my readers don't even work
If you
here.
can't see what we're looking at, that is a 1 inch by 6
Look at
inch.
here.
4 inch.
Eric, go to my camera there so the people watching the video can see it. Let's just
That
see
was
here.
how it came out on my printer.
Look at that. You see that? That's it. That's how it came out of his print. Yeah, I can't make anything out. But that's just one of them, though. We've got other ones here.
Right.
So let's see. This one here. St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, 1862. The anniversary of Ireland's apostle. 41 B's... What? Something...
BCE?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's kind of worn away. Celebrated St. Patrick's Church on this Monday morning, March 17th, with the usual solemnity. The Reverend A.G.L. Yeah, okay, all right there. Yeah, sorry. The interests of the war now pending seem to have exerted a similar influence upon us. Yesterday was St. Patrick's Day, the 17th of March, and yet we must confess that we forgot all about it.
That's an interesting one because it comes out of North Carolina. Again, kind of speaking to that, we're not getting as much coverage of this event in the South.
So here, let's say here. It says yesterday was St. Patrick's Day, yet it was St. Patrick's Day, and saint or no saint, the individual referred to was a noble missionary to the Gentiles, a true successor of St. Paul and St. Peter. He did good, and he spread good and true doctrine, and intelligent Protestants, as well as intelligent Catholics, agree upon that point, and indeed both claim him. Okay, yeah, interesting. Another
and that
tiny
emphasis
one here.
Was actually in the article.
Yeah,
too.
they put Protestants and Catholics in quotations, and that's it. St. Patrick's Day in New York, 17th. St. Patrick's Day was finally celebrated today. The procession of Irish societies was 5 or 6 miles in length. We talked about this one before. Wow, that is.
But
that is interesting.
We're talking multiple columns in things like the New York Times describing all the events going on, the speeches being given, the toasts being given, the temperate societies having their own counter celebrations, things of that nature.
Are you saying Temperance Society?
Yes.
There's an Irish Temperance Society?
A lot of them at the time.
Because there's such a big problem with the drinking.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Or it's a perceived problem of the drinking.
Well, you're not Irish.
I'm a little bit Irish.
We've been a cliche folk for a long time.
Yeah. That's the other thing. We're proud to be a cliche.
Sure.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, we can drink you under the table. So shut up.
I believe both of you could.
Quit your belly aching.
And we know Eric could.
No.
The Germans are pretty good at it too.
I don't really drink.
Yeah.
No,
That's the thing. Is like
That's really my thing
I don't
anymore,
really
yeah.
either.
I don't have anything against it. I just don't really like doing it anymore.
my drinking days are behind me. Yet I like to talk about them with fondness, and they were fun.
Again, second time we're going to state it. We're in our mid to late 30s and 40s on this show.
Yeah, we can't be drinking like we used to.
Right.
We get up remotely early. I was talking to my wife. We went out. We had a date night last night for the first time in a year. Like legitimately
Congrats,
a year.
buddy.
Welcome to parenthood,
So,
buddy.
It was
Yeah.
awesome. And she and I were both like starting to have a few drinks, and then she was like, "Do you want to get more?" And I was like, "Yes." No. And she's like, "Why?" And I was like, "Because I don't want to like feel so crappy all day tomorrow."
Yes,
and like
exactly.
that's where I'm at.
Exactly. God bless you all, the listeners that always want to take me out for a beer. I appreciate it, and I'll go with you. But I feel bad when I order iced tea.
Yeah.
Like I'll go get a beer with you. I can't do it. Like I physically can't do it. I can drink it, but I can't recover.
Like a beer is fine, but that's not what we want when you say let's go out for a
Correct.
beer. You want like beers.
You want to get drunk,
or
and I don't want to get
shots.
drunk.
And I don't know about the rest of you guys here, but my liver took quite a beating in the 20s.
Yeah.
There you
in
go.
my 20s.
That's right.
So I'm kind of trying to,
I've
make up for
I've honestly never been a big drinker.
Well, good, because
Only
it's just a waste.
A couple times a year.
There'd be
Yeah.
a small part of me that actually would pay to see Matt just completely hammered.
Yeah,
New Year's.
Part of me wants to do
New
this.
Year's is usually when I would get messed up, and that's
What
about
we
it.
should have done was the St. Patty's Day, or still can be done, the live drinking episode where we just get hammered on the air.
Jeez. No, thank you. We can get Matt hammered on the air, and we
that
could all be
wouldn't be-
sober and
that
just
wouldn't be
watch it.
fun.
That would be
each-
hilarious.
We
Yeah.
can each
Honest-
sit here and sip a beer and ponder about the hangover that's
Those
coming
guys
the next
drank
day.
a beer for 4 hours.
Right.
It was weird.
The three of us will be getting a case of O'Doul's, and we'll get Matt like the highest ABV beer we could find.
Matt's over here with steel reserves.
He'll have two of them. He's like, I don't understand. You guys have had 16 beers yourselves, and you're doing okay.
You guys are awesome.
You guys are holding your liquor pretty well. You must be Irish.
Funny story about drinking. And McGuire here.
No.
When my first book came out, he got the first interview that I gave, and he did a great job interviewing me. We had a lot of fun doing it, but we did it at Callahan's Irish pub in Frederick, and videotaped it and all that good stuff. And a bunch of my friends back home in Michigan watched it, and they all noticed that, okay, interview, and my beer is barely moving throughout the course of it. And then towards the end of it, Pat goes, "You better drink that damn thing," because he had already gone through like 2 at that point. And so, like, for the last 2 minutes, it's beer, wham,
Yeah,
it's all gone.
Yeah, if you watch, Matt's beer progressively, incrementally, snail pace just gets lower. But if you watch, my beer gets low, and then if you cut scene, it comes back, it's filled up again because I got a refill. And by the end of it, that one's down, and Matt's like, I still have half a beer.
Yeah, I can't.
How did we go so far off the rails again?
Sorry.
Well, it's Irish.
Well, we're talking about.
This can all be edited.
We're
Is
talking
Dave
about
Wilson
St.
here?
Patty's Day thing.
No, why? Because we would go
yeah,
off the rails.
absolutely.
No, well, we can go off the rails with other people.
Well, we're talking about St. Patty's Day.
Yeah.
Like, what do people do?
We see that's the other thing he does. There's just fun going on, and he just comes in and he goes, "Why are we
That's what I
having
do.
fun?"
Buzz Killington over here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Aaron, when
That's
did you
what
get
I'm here
here?
for. That's why I exist.
Just keeps crashing into this conversation.
Yeah,
How many funny Germans do you know?
not many.
Exactly.
They're actually quite unfunny people.
Yes,
Thanks,
yes.
Eric.
Yeah,
I do what I can. And that's exactly it.
They really are unfunny. You're having the world was having fun, and then Germany had to step in twice
Germany's
and ruin
like,
the fun.
9.
No, God.
That's a different show.
You all
Anyway.
build your empires.
The drinking thing, I can't do it anymore. I don't even really want to do it, and it's mostly because of I enjoy a beer or a glass of wine with a meal,
Right.
to complement a meal,
Yep.
like an old person.
There's nothing wrong with that, man.
Well, there is when your spirit is still young.
Matt, in your research, did you find that soldiers were more willing to want to celebrate the holiday as the war went on? Because I keep coming to this concept of, like, there was a photograph of a Zouave unit taken in the woods somewhere around 1864, and I can't recall the unit offhand, but I remember, I'll never forget.
114th Pennsylvania.
That's exactly what I was
There's
thinking.
a guy, if you're looking at the photo, he'd be on your left, but there's a guy in this photo who looks so spent, absolutely just emotionally worn out. And I can't imagine that guy was like, yeah, let's blow off the steam for like a day. Like, I can't imagine a lot of people had the energy to, like, truly blow off steam. Did you find that at all, that soldiers were just kind of like, in the waning years of the war, just like the toll of the war kind of stole some of the fun of the day?
Well, I think that's what you're seeing with some of those quotes I read about 64, 65. I mean, the units are a lot smaller by that point. 65, the Irish Brigade doesn't even exist anymore.
Right.
Most of the units have been not drummed out. They've been released from the Army. But no, I think there's a lot of truth to that. They've seen a lot of their friends die from disease and from battle, and they just want to get through this. They're still trying to celebrate to the best of their abilities, but it's not the 63.
I just wouldn't have the energy in 64 or 65. I'd be
Right.
like, why are we doing this?
No, I just want to,
Like, we're
get this
still,
over
we're still
with.
getting shot at.
Can we fight a battle? Maybe get a little closer to the end of the war instead of partying like
That's what I
this.
mean, like, we're still outrunning our supply trains. Like, God.
Now,
But let's go run over some hurdles, guys, and waste more horses.
the term Irish Brigade was not an official designation, correct?
That's interesting because the ORs, the official records of the War of the Rebellion, do refer to them in many cases as the Irish Brigade, or they'll refer to them as Maher's Irish Brigade because.
But those are people in the Army writing reports or messages to each other, and
Right.
they're that's like the common way to refer to them is the Irish Brigade.
Right.
But I mean, as far as the Army as an institution and the government.
Correct.
They wouldn't have designated them as the Irish
Correct.
Brigade.
They
Did the
did
Army
not.
designate? Like, did they designate the Iron Brigade?
Well, wouldn't it? No, that's what I'm saying. It's
Yeah.
like those are nicknames that they've earned.
Exactly.
But because I know we have people that are new to all this, and I want them to understand that, sometimes you just misunderstand things when you hear stuff. And so there wasn't an official, the Irish Brigade.
Sure.
It wasn't like they said, okay, we need a brigade full of Irishmen, and we're going to call it the Irish Brigade, so let's start filling them full of mix. That's not what it was.
Right.
It was they earned that nickname
There were
because
other
they were
brigades that called themselves
And
Irish
that was my
brigades.
second question. Go ahead with that.
Well, it's interesting. The 110th Pennsylvania Infantry has two companies that are primarily Irish, and they refer to those companies as the Irish Brigade as a little joke within the regiment. And we see that with just the listing of the units I did earlier. You've got companies that are Irish, and they've got little nicknames and things, or we've got the Irish so-and-so regiment, that sort of thing. So, yes, this idea of the Irish Brigade nickname being more than just these 4 to 5 regiments in the Army of the Potomac did happen. But, of course, this is the main Irish Brigade.
Irish Brigade.
The Irish Brigade.
I mean, you see that
There
all
were
over the war.
Right. Wasn't there a Confederate Irish Brigade?
Well, there's Cobb's Irish Legion.
Well, that's the Legion,
Yeah.
Cobb's Legion, yeah.
There's Kelly's Irish Brigade. Isn't that
No, it's these guys, isn't it?
Kelly? Isn't Kelly a Confederate?
There's a Kelly in the Irish Brigade, too, the New York one.
Maybe I'm thinking of a different one.
But I don't honestly know if there was a Confederate Irish Brigade. It's certainly possible. And I know that that whole swath of boys there at Fredericksburg
On the wall.
on the wall, yeah.
A lot of those are T.R. Cobb's guys.
Yeah.
T.R.R.R. T.R.R.R.
Multiple R Cobb.
T.R.R.
Yeah, what is that? The 24th Georgia?
23 and 24. I believe,
24th
right
is who I mentioned earlier for one of our Confederate Irish units.
Well, there's there's the Stonewall Brigade, right? And then there's Michigan has like a Stonewall Regiment.
17th.
And the Irish Brigade name I think goes around, but gets known for the 3 to 5 units that rotate through it.
There's about 4 Iron Brigades too, if you count them all too.
Yeah,
so.
but there's one Iron Brigade.
Who's got the nervous leg?
Probably me.
Probably
Is that
me.
you? Well,
Sorry.
both of you?
Probably.
I feel like it's a goddamn earthquake going on here.
There
okay.
is an earthquake.
What kind of earthquake?
I don't know.
No, I thought you had something.
No.
Like an earthquake of love or something.
No, that holiday's over.
Yeah. Well, listen, much like a typical, and Eric before says, he references us going off the rails. Clearly, he's never been to an Irish conversation, and this is
Very
how they go. They're you sit around a table,
Fluid.
you talk. They're very fluid because there's plenty of fluid flowing during an Irish conversation, and so you jump around from subject to subject, but you always get back to the original point, which was.
St. Patty's Day.
Oh, that's it. Yes, St. Patrick's Day, right?
And then we'll just end the show with a series of Irish goodbyes. People just stop talking. Eventually, it's Eric alone
like
in the room.
30 Irish goodbyes because we don't know how to say goodbye. That's the other thing we're bad at. You don't like to say goodbye. But go ahead. Why don't you start that, Matt or Patrick? Why don't you give us an Irish blessing or an Irish
There you
goodbye?
Oh man, I on the spot don't have Irish blessings.
Make it up because they don't make any sense anyway. So go ahead.
May the road rise.
See, always
to meet
starts
you,
with a road rising. Yes.
and the wind be at your back.
Yes.
And
But you're just quoting ones you heard. I'm saying make one up.
and may your cuppeth overfloweth. I don't know. Yeah, you don't do that.
All right, Matt Borders, you go.
Oh, geez.
Yes.
May your history research be fruitful and all your facts be straight. May your citations be accurate, and go get a piece of cake.
Oh, you were so close. You were so close. But it was better than Pat. So
I wasn't
I'm gonna
prepared
give you
for that.
that.
I wasn't prepared for that at all.
watch this. Eric, you want to try one?
I tried to rhyme.
May your schnitzel be tender and your sauerkraut sweet.
I do like me some sauerkraut.
Move on.
As life rakes you over the coals, may you always have greasy poles. When the road tumbles at your feet, may the scotch be distilled in peat.
Make it neat. Serve your scotch neat.
Okay, that one didn't work.
It was pretty good.
Well, it started good, but I did not end well. All right, but speaking of ending well, we're going to go out with our typical song, Gary Owen, except this time it's not done by the great Billy Webster. It is done by a pipe and drum band, because it is, after all, St. Patrick's Day. I'd like to thank Matt Borders for doing all of the work for this episode. I love when people do all the work and I just sit and ask questions. And Pat McGuire, thank you for coming along.
Thanks,
and
Matt.
Wearing your scarf.
Appreciate it.
I like the scarf. Yeah, you're welcome. Always a pleasure. Always welcome, too. You don't need an invite, a special invite. If Matt comes to do another one, you can always come.
I'll be comic relief.
Pat cried. He was so sad. He was like, "Why didn't you invite me?"
That's not what I said.
That's exactly what you said. You were like, "Oh."
What I said was how utterly disrespectful it was to not invite Patrick on the St. Patrick's Day episode.
He's my co-host. I'm not his co-host. My co-host.
I did. I falsetto when I get upset.
You do. You had a very high voice.
If you want to hear my falsetto, come listen to the History Things podcast.
He's not even Irish. I'm Irish.
I'm a little bit
Why
Irish.
would you invite him?
Matt,
Anyway,
are you
yeah.
recording my house?
Go to the History Things podcast, listen to Pat and Matt, and thank you all for listening. Have a good one. Don't drink too much if you do. Bye.